it's your first time here. A few minutes ago I was looking on Amazon.com at my book, The Perfect Guide to Surviving in the World We Know It, Gear, Skills, and Related Know-How. I was reading some of the reviews that have been posted about that book on that platform, and the vast majority of those reviews were 100% positive. The book has a 4.6 star rating and 300 and something comments have been posted about that book. But there's always that one guy that always posts a negative comment. And this guy posted a comment, and essentially his argument was, or his criticism was, that the book wasn't complicated enough. The book was for noobs, he said. And it got me to thinking, why would you want to make prepping complicated? Obviously he was leaving that comment because he wanted to make himself appear like he was some master, super prepper who had superior knowledge to anyone who had written that book, which is me, or anyone reading that book. He was trying to make himself look and feel superior. That's all it boiled down to. And that's what a lot of comments you see, negative comments are all about, is making themselves look more superior in their own mind. That's why that's why people like to pick on these YouTube videos and pick about, the way you breathe, or the way you talk, or the way you look, or anything to try to make themselves feel better and to make themselves look like they are somehow superior than you are. But anyway, that guy was talking in that comment and said it was okay for noobs, he guessed. And like I said, it got me to thinking, why would you want to make prepping complicated? Why would you want to have more steps than is necessary? Take gardening for example. Now, you could put in a huge hydroponic system under grow lights with all kinds of pumps and everything, regulators and things, everything set up, and it will grow food. It'll grow food great if you can keep that running. However, the more parts you have, the more steps you have, the more likely something is to go wrong and to mess your whole system up. And in a grid down situation or a long-term survival situation, if you had those complicated systems in place, you might not be able to find the parts you need. You might not be able to provide the energy that you need to keep that going, electricity for example. So why make things complicated? There is hydroponic systems that don't require pumps or electricity. And if you can do that, that's great also. But you want to keep things as simple as possible. Just like the simplest concept with gardening is to put those plants in the ground. That's the way plants has been grown since there's been plants, is in the ground. So keep things simple. If you look at any of your preps and you can figure out how I can make this less complicated, how I can eliminate a step in this process, how can I do that and get to work doing that? Because you want things to be as simple as possible. Why complicate things? Things that are simple work best. You've all heard the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid. And that definitely goes twofold for prepping and survival. So guys, anytime you're looking at a specific survival technique or putting in specific infrastructure, try to figure out, sit down to think, how can you make this less complicated? How can you use less parts? How can you use less moving parts, for example? How can you use less steps to accomplish the same goal? And guys, when it comes to survival and homesteading, you should try to figure out how you can make more production with less energy output. For example, if you can figure out a gardening technique that will require less work, less strain on your back, less physical labor, you can implement that and grow more, or to grow the same as you would by working that much harder, then do that. You should always strive to put out the least amount of energy for the most reward. Take hunting for another example. You could go out and you could go deer hunting, for example, and you could put in a lot of work walking, hunting, climbing up in those tree stands, waiting, and use a lot of time, energy, and a lot of times you'll come home with absolutely nothing. Sport hunting isn't really efficient, in all honesty about it, guys. You come out a lot better if you would set up a deer snare. Now, those are illegal. I'm not saying to do that, but in a survival situation, it's all fair game. Set in a snare, find a good deer trail that's been well used, well worn, and set that snare up on that trail, and you can leave and go back and be doing something else. You know, for instance, working that garden, and you can go back and your catches are waiting on you. You can, instead of going, like, for example, squirrel hunting, and whereas, you know, you kill a squirrel or two, it's not going to supply, you know, a lot of caloric intake. So you don't want to put a lot of effort into that. But if you know where they are cutting, for example, you know, where they are eating those pine cones, where they're eating those acorns, you can observe, you can put in a pole and set snares across that, and they will travel across that to get from this point to this point in that tree they're going to, and they'll get themselves caught. You can also put in, you know, live traps to catch rabbits, for example, and it's easy. Trapping is much more efficient than hunting. Well, guys, anything you can do to make prepping, survival, homesteading simpler and easier is a huge plus. And anything you do, try to figure out how you can do that more simply, with less moving parts, and as easily as possible, because, you know, if you go out and you expend more calories than you're taking in, then you have a negative intake. And it don't take long, if you have a lot of negative intake on those calories, to start losing weight and to actually die of malnutrition, for example. So you want to figure out the easiest way possible to do things. I don't understand why people want to make prepping complicated, why they want to make survival complicated, why they want to make homesteading complicated. I don't understand why they want to make things as difficult as possible. You know, this is hard enough anyway, to grow that garden, to preserve that produce. But if you can make it more easier, more simpler, then do that. Don't think it has to be complicated. And guys, another example would be cutting firewood. You know, you go out, take that chainsaw, you cut that wood, you bring that wood home, you split that wood up, put that wood in your stove. A lot of energy output. And a lot of times, you can come out cheaper in good times to actually pay someone else to go out and cut that, split that, and bring that in. Especially if the way you make your income is less energy intensive. If you can earn that money to go ahead and pay someone else to do that, and you got the money without expending a lot of energy, then you can actually go ahead and pay for that and come out on top when it comes to getting your own firewood. So sometimes it's better to pay someone to do something for you. You know, in good times especially, or even in bad times, you had the way and the means to actually barter for that item or whatever. So you want to make everything, like I said, guys, as simple as possible, with as few moving steps as possible, and as less work as absolutely possible. But anyways, guys, if you enjoyed the video, found it useful, entertaining, informative, give it a big thumbs up, greatly appreciate it. If you haven't checked out my book yet, The Preparedness Guide to Surviving, the Universally Know It, Gear, Skills, and Related Know-How, you can check that out at Amazon.com, link description box below. Thanks for watching, and Creekmore, I'm out of here. I'll see you all in the next video, hopefully.